It is 2026 and I am absolutely happy to be with you, ready to give you second take after second take after second take. My birthday was on the 31st of December and I absolutely enjoyed it, much like Museveni would enjoy another term in power. But how are we celebrating? We're celebrating by looking back. During 2025, second take turned 2, and it was a real celebration for us. It was a journey through some of our most potent stories, and I thought let's have a recap as we enter 2026, where we expect much to happen, and of course you can expect us to talk right after everything happens. So second take turned 2, and this is how we handled it. Good night. We start in Gabon, where Ali Bongo went from president to prisoner faster than you can say dynasty collapse. Remember the video? A panicked Bongo begging the world to make noise while Gabonese citizens didn't. A military coup ended over 5 decades of Bongo family rule, proving that even the most entrenched leaders can be swept aside when the army swaps loyalty for power. It was one of the wildest political twists we've ever covered, and one of my favorite moments on Second Take from our very first episode, before corruption started making me pull my hair out. Enjoy. With the recent events in Gabon, where a military coup thrust the Central African nation into turmoil, unseating the president just minutes after he was named the winner of a contested election. Ousted President Ali Bongo Ondimba, also known as Ali Bongo, has faced accusations of election fraud and corruption since he began ruling the oil-rich but poverty-stricken nation nearly 14 years ago. He took over from his father, Omar Bongo, who was the president for 42 years, 1967 to 2009. Now, Gabonese President Ali Bongo, speaking from apparent house arrest on Wednesday, asked the international community to make noise to support him and his family in a video shared widely online after military officers declared they had seized power. So naturally, I wondered why he was not appealing to his local support, fellow patriots and citizens alike. I mean, if you are democratically elected and you have the majority of votes, it's logical to appeal to your people to free you. So I thought I was wrong, because this was the reaction from the people of Gabon. Yep, residents in the capital of Libreville were seen dancing on the streets. In one video, people can be seen shouting "liberated" and waving the Gabonese flag in the Nteng district of the capital alongside military vehicles. Now I had to ask myself, what did he do to make the people celebrate his demise so emphatically? Well, the answer starts with his father, who I suppose was of the opinion that one simply can't rule for 42 years without affording themselves some benefits, given the sheer effort it takes to convince a nation that the presidency is actually a family business. Omar Bongo had 70 bank accounts, 39 apartments, 2 Ferraris, 6 Mercedes-Benz cars, 3 Porsches, and a Bugatti in France, because why not? So for his son, it only made sense that he followed family tradition, making sure Gabon's oil reserves enriched its rulers, many linked by family ties, and ignoring the frustration growing among the population over the inequality on display. 33.4% of Gabon's population lives in poverty in spite of being oil rich and only being 2.4 million people. But that didn't stop Ali Bongo from adding spice to what it means to be daddy's boy. For example, he once imported fake snow to the presidential palace so his family could have a snowy Christmas. Okay, so it's safe to say he left a sour taste in many people's mouths, people who would clearly prefer to have food on the table. But things didn't have to be this way. See, Ali Bongo could have changed his fate, not this year, but in the 70s when he was a funk musician going by the stage name Alain Bongo. That's right. He even released an album in 1977 titled A Brand New Man. And perhaps if his father had allowed the African boy to be an artist, Gabonese people wouldn't be asking for the same thing. And then there's Uganda, where we crowned Yoweri Kaguta Museveni our Dictator of the Year. After nearly 4 decades in power, Museveni still refuses to retire. Instead, he collects new titles like Pokemon cards, including his personal favorite, Sema Lungu. From cracking down on digital dissent to grooming his son for succession, Museveni has mastered the art of ruling forever while pretending democracy still exists. Uganda gave us satire on a silver platter, a tragic reminder of what happens when power becomes a family business. We start with our Minister of the Decade, also from Uganda, Evelyn Anite, followed by the big man himself, Yoweri Semalungu Museveni. Meet Ugandan politician Honorable Evelyn Anite. When she was running for Member of Parliament for the northern town of Koboko, she came up with a brilliant idea. She decided to donate an ambulance to help ease access, especially for women, children, and the elderly, to health facilities. What a good gesture. After all, the two things you want from a politician are the ability to truly empathize with the plight of the most vulnerable and actively working to bridge the gap. It was a beautiful story until she lost the election, because the minister proceeded to take the ambulance back. Now, years later, one would assume that the minister understood how disingenuous it was to take back a potentially life-saving gift. I mean, not everyone will be good at everything, and perhaps the people of Koboko felt that she was better suited as a donor than a leader. Either way, this last week on X Twitter, the page Africa Facts Online posted the story of her conditional loyalty to healthcare, and she responded by doubling down, saying, "Thank you for bringing this up. First, it's true I took back my ambulance and I have no apologies for that. Why did I do it? It's because they didn't vote for me. So did you expect me to just walk away with nothing?" Galatians 6 verse 7, she said, "A man reaps what he sows." Wow, she brought religion into it. Imagine if Jesus took back the fish and the loaves of bread, or turned the wine back into water, or pushed Lazarus back into the tomb because the people doubted him and his dad told him he would eventually be crucified. By the way, Honorable Anita was not done. Some folks tried to take her to task, and she had double doses of doubling down for each of them. When one account tweeted, "Indeed, Ugandans, we are so shameless," she responded saying, "Just like the voters, like seriously, why would you vote out someone who has given you an ambulance?" Then someone tried to appeal to her conscience, stating that if you decide to help, do so with no strings attached, to which she responded saying that it was not help, it was a conditional grant. Another person went on to call her shameless, saying that she just has the ambulance in her compound, to which she replied saying that she is shameless to the extent that she sold it. There were dozens more replies and direct, non-apologetic responses from Honorable Evelyn Anite, but the exchange that really brought it home was an account that tweeted, "So it's transactional politics." And the minister responded saying, "You mean you don't know?" Jarring as it is, it's probably good that Honorable Evelyn Anite took us behind the veil of pre-election political promises, revealing how little some politicians care about actually helping the communities that give them power. And why is she standing next to that man? Because her reward was becoming the Minister of Privatization and Investment in Uganda. In Uganda, President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, political overachiever, retirement denier, and reigning monarch of multi-party elections, has secured his ruling NRM party's endorsement for a 7th term in 2026. That's right, 7 terms, 40 years, and counting. Museveni's narrative is simple. He brought peace, he brought stability, and he's not leaving until he personally achieves Vision 2040, a plan that, judging by its timelines, includes him ruling from the afterlife. His supporters call him the father of the nation. His critics call him the father who won't move out. Opposition figure Bobby Wine calls him worse things on Twitter, trust me. But Wine's grassroots movement faces constant harassment, arrests, and rallies shut down for security reasons that somehow always involve heavily armed security forces. Kizza Besigye, another long-time opponent, remains in detention under treason charges, which in Ugandan politics basically counts as a seasonal subscription plan. The absurdity lies in the predictability. Museveni announces his candidacy, opposition protests, security forces disperse them, and NRM celebrates the people's choice. Lather, rinse, repeat. And yet, Museveni's dominance isn't just about brute force. It's also about strategy, co-opting rival factions, reshaping constitutional rules, and keeping party structures so loyal that challenging him feels like changing Wi-Fi passwords without permission. And here's the second take verdict. Uganda is proof that elections don't need suspense to be entertaining. Just one man, a party that never blinks, and an opposition that somehow survives every beating long enough to tweet about it. Zambia delivered one of our most complex and emotional stories, the fallout from Edgar Lungu's death and the political storm it unleashed. From bitter family feuds over burial rights to the government's handling of his legacy, the drama surrounding Lungu's passing revealed deep divisions within Zambia's political landscape. On second take, we unpacked it all, not just the headlines, but the quiet power plays shaping Zambia's future. This story reminded us that even in death, politics does not have a pause button.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about what I think is going on here. Now, the last thing I'm going to do is pretend that I am Zambian. But also, the last thing I'm going to do is pretend that we are not together in this region, that our politics don't often intersect, particularly when it comes to election campaigns, particularly when it comes to liberation movements. But let's bring it back here. Edgar Lungu's family enjoyed the benefits of being his family whilst he was in power. And some might say they created certain benefits for themselves. There's a plethora of cases involving theft and fraud just hovering around them. And this is my opinion. Please don't send any lawyers to me. I am married to a Zambian lawyer. That's as much interaction I want to have with the Zambian legal community. So this is my own opinion. Is there more to this? Is there more to this resistance? Because the Pretoria High Court said that his body must be taken back to Zambia. I think a lot of people who think logically, particularly when it comes down to governance and politics, understood that it would be very difficult for South Africa to make a ruling that involves the president of another nation being buried in their nation, going against the laws of that nation. You remember there were times when it seemed like there was some form of, progress in the negotiations. But what's been really at the core of it all? They don't want Hakainde Hichilema, the head of state of Zambia, to preside over the funeral of a former head of state of Zambia. Now, if you heard the unfortunate insults which were uttered upon the ruling being announced in Pretoria, you'll start getting a further glimpse into where people's minds are. It seems that Zambian government is being accused of witchcraft, of needing to or wanting to, bewitch Edgar Lungu's remains. I can't make sense of it. But really, this is not a man who had beaten his enemy. He had lost by 1 million votes. Hakainde Hichilema won. And that's something that's very important for us as human beings. We need to be okay with taking the L. It's essential. You're not always going to win in life. And let's be very honest, for a long time, Lungu had his finger pressed on Hakainde Hichilema's entire life. We won't even talk about the countless times that HH was arrested. When Lungu had the power, he did what it seems the Lungu family expected Hakainde Hichilema to do when he got power. He didn't. Now, you remember the biblical verse about not revenging your enemies and, to be like hot coals on their head. I am in Katima, so I was in church yesterday and no, I did not spontaneously combust. But anyway, it's like that sometimes. When you don't react the way people expect you to react, they often reveal that they were projecting that behavior themselves. And that's what it looks like. It also seems like there's and understanding that they want Zambians to grasp or the government to grasp without saying it, because these cases are not going away. Zambia is not going away. Tasia Lungu is a member of parliament. She needs to go back to work. Of course, parliament did say 12 days after her father's burial, she can return back to work. Keep in mind, I don't want to sound an African when it comes to our reverence around certain events, but at certain points, you have to accept when someone has sullied what could have been done properly. And I feel like the Lungu family can take the responsibility for sullying this process because it was not supposed to drag this long. I think Hakainde Shilema was prepared to bury Edgar Lungu as his constitution says he has to do. We can't, in fact, it's very reflective of PF and Lungu's PF to see the constitution as a suggestion, to see it as something that you can try and bend to your will. Some people say that that's how they governed. This disregard for rules, this abrasiveness. And this is really where we are with this story with Hakainde Shilema and Edgar Lungu. Now, HH himself has not said anything. He announced the period of mourning. Attorney General took over, and HH has just been waiting for things to be done properly. On HH's part, he has to adhere to the law. Now, some of you might be thinking, oh, this guy is an HH supporter. He didn't help me pay my lobola. Yeah, no. I have nothing to gain from this conversation. But as Africans, we need to be aware of such situations because they keep recurring. This happened before. Next door in Zimbabwe, Robert Gabriel Mugabe did not want to be buried by Emerson Mnangagwa. Now there was some success, but Mnangagwa came in. How he came in, some might say military coup, others might say military coup. And so I feel like that's a different situation, whereas in Zambia, the law has been followed right from election time, right up until now. So we don't know what the Lungu family wants. We don't know precisely what they're trying to negotiate. They have appealed the ruling from Pretoria, fair, fine, that is within their rights. But I don't think they're going to get their way. At some point, they're going to have to sit with the reality that they are Zambians and they too must obey Zambian laws.
And finally, Namibia, where the Namco financial scandal gave us one of the most shocking stories from home. The billions lost, the boardroom battles, the political finger pointing. Namco wasn't just about mismanagement. It was about trust, accountability, and the rot that seeps in when state-owned giants fail. As our home audience watched leaders dodge and shift, we sharpened our satire and cut through the spin. Because here at Second Take, even when it's home, we hold power to account. If corruption had a fragrance, Namco's Windhoek headquarters would smell like diesel and designer guilt. For nearly a decade, Emmanuel Ims Mulunga drove Namco from a modest state-owned petroleum distributor to a multi-million-dollar playground for the well-connected. And drive he did, in multiple luxury vehicles bearing the custom number plates. Oil. That's not satire. That's a registered fact. In Namibia, a country with functioning courts, real investigative journalists, and civil society that actually bites, this level of blatant self-branding was either impressively brazen or a midlife crisis in motion. Namco's revenue ballooned from 610 to 7.4 billion Namibian dollars under Mulunga's watch, but so did its costs. Profit? Still missing, presumed dead. It's like hosting a braai for the entire neighborhood every weekend and wondering why you're broke, even though the guests bring nothing but lunchboxes. And now the bill has arrived, 841 million Namibian dollars in bad debt, over 560 million allegedly siphoned off in fake fuel transactions, and no one at the time thought to ask, why is the man in the oil car so generous with national fuel? On July 8, 2025, the Anti-Corruption Commission, ACC, Namibia's not-so-silent sentinels of state accountability, decided they'd had enough of oil oligarchs with charm, chains, and unexplained credit lines. 5 arrests were made, including the flamboyant Mr. Oil himself and his supply and distribution sidekick Cedric Willemse, who seems to have missed every class on the art of subtlety because these are the TikToks he was making.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, this is Christmas, and the blessings has come. This will be a good year, 2025. Watch out, I'm coming.
The other 4 arrested individuals were ex-NAMCO executives. One was reportedly someone's spouse, proving once again that in Southern Africa, corruption is not just business. It's a family brand. By the next day, 8 suspects were in custody, including the infamous Elindi brothers, Peter and Malakia, allegedly the brains behind the Enacon, Namibia, Erongo Petroleum and Eco Fuels, aka the 3-headed hydra of debt, diesel and dodgy deals. These companies reportedly received truckloads of petroleum product on credit and repaid Namibia with silence. This wasn't just a blip. It was an industrial-scale looting facilitated by men who knew which government phone lines to call and which approval processes to ignore. The ACC, to their credit, didn't blink. The suspects were marched into the Windhoek Magistrates Court on July 10 for their first appearance. And for once in Africa, it wasn't to delay justice, but to begin it. Let's be honest. Emmanuel Mulunga didn't fall from grace. He slipped on his own ego and landed in a labor court file. After an unauthorized $6.7 million payment for an Angolan oil block, which he made like a man using state funds as monopoly money, the ACC investigated him and astonishingly cleared him of criminal intent. Apparently, trying to be patriotic while ignoring board procedures is now an acceptable defense. Then came the purchase of Enacon Namibia's fuel assets, despite the company owing NAMCO more than 300 million Namibian dollars. That was the final straw. NAMCO fired him in August 2024, just 1 day after a disciplinary panel cleared him on technicality. Timing much? Mulunga wasn't having it. He challenged his dismissal, claiming he was unfairly tossed out. On the 5th of June, however, an arbitrator ruled in his favor, sort of. NAMCO's counterclaims were thrown out and they were ordered to pay 4,000 Namibian dollars in costs. 4,000 bucks. That's less than the price of fuel for one of his oil cars. But Namibia is not your average post-colonial state with a justice pending tattoo. This is a country where you can actually get convicted for stealing fuel, not just promoted to deputy minister. With a constitution that still means something and an ACC that doesn't fear luxury lawyers, this scandal isn't going away. The prosecutors came prepared. The suspects arrived stunned. Even the fuel receipts were better documented than some campaign budgets. The ACC sting operation was not a publicity stunt. It was accountability on wheels. The public saw arrests, not press conferences. They saw headlines with names, not unnamed senior officials. In Namibia, corrupt elites can't just retire in Dubai with a diplomatic passport and a weak heart. They face courtrooms. They face questions. They face citizens who remember. And they face real consequences, unlike the fuel they supplied, which disappeared without ever facing customs. And that's a wrap on 2 years of Second Take. 90 episodes of daring to laugh where others stay silent. If satire is a mirror, then Africa has given us a cracked, chaotic, Beautiful reflection. We've mocked the mighty, challenged the narratives, and reminded those in power that no throne is immune to punchlines. But satire isn't just about jokes. It's about resisting erasure, demanding accountability, and exposing the absurdity of authoritarian dreams dressed up as democracy. Across the continent, voices are being stifled. Yet here we are, louder, sharper, and bolder than ever. As we step into our third year, the mission stays the same. Cut deeper, laugh harder, and never blink in the face of power. Because the moment satire goes silent, tyranny wins. To every viewer, every whistleblower, and every lover of chaos, thank you for being a part of this journey. The next season promises more heat, more headlines, and more hilariously uncomfortable truths. This has been Second Take, where satire isn't safe, but it's necessary. Good night.